Animal life. Humans cut down, burn down, clear out, bulldoze over, and cement over incalculable areas of land on a daily basis and on a mass scale. In such a world, then, who speaks for the animals? We are rapidly dedicated to expanding and remaking our environment to our convenience and comfort. Everywhere we go settle, we clear out ancient trees and rare plants, and empty dry ponds and streams to build our homes, businesses, and industries. Not in many places in the world do the people doing these destructive tasks ask about the animals in the affected areas. Only a few industrially advanced nations have some very circumventable regulations that attempt to restrict land development due to endangered species. Even fewer nations actually abide by and enforce these regulations. The destruction of animal habitats is relentless. For instance, in every city and town of the US and the world, there is some sort of construction project expanding into wildlands. This may be going on in your own town, where you can observe the indiscriminate, no questions asked, clearing of land, and similar or worse occurrences are happening worldwide and on a daily basis. This recognition gives you a sense of the magnitude and the rate at which we are taking land away from wildlife and for our own selfish comfort. Destructive construction projects, big and small, are constantly happening throughout the world. Many projects clear out vast areas of land in very short periods due to the mechanization of construction. Huge machinery is used to uproot large trees and grind down ancient and rare trees. For example, I was myself part of a construction project that used 2,000 acres of land to install millions of solar panels in a solar farm. And there have been similarly sized projects in this region of the state alone that occurred in recent years. These vast areas were cleared out and extinguished of animal life without too many questions asked. Some persistent species were transplanted from their home to another area, most likely for them to die or harmfully invade other species. That land was bought, a few permits were acquired, and a few people tapped their heels as they walked to the bank. Meanwhile, perhaps thousands to tens of thousands of animals lost their homes: deer, bears, foxes, coyotes, rabbits, snakes, and perhaps hundreds of other species which are quickly disappearing from these areas in Middle Georgia due to land clearing. For example, bears used to be a common sight in the Middle Georgia regions in past decades, and habitat loss, unrestricted hunting, and human intolerance caused a serious bear population decline. I've lived in this area for over 15 years and have only seen one bear in the wild. Recently, in the Atlanta, Georgia, nearby forest of Willowney, there is a planned construction of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, also called Cop City. This planned $90+ million facility would clear 85 acres of pristine forest lands and repurpose it for use by various law enforcement agencies and the movie industry. Widespread protests have occurred since the plans were made public. As of this writing, dozens of peaceful protesters have been jailed, and some were unusually charged with domestic terrorism and racketeering charges. One protester was shot 57 times and killed during a police raid of a protester camp. Evidence showed this protester was unarmed. This heavy-handed government response to build a frivolous and damaging facility on stolen indigenous land shows the aggressiveness of corrupt money interests in the city of Atlanta and the carelessness that exists for wild and critical ecosystems. Further south, in Florida, one of the most unique wildlife areas in the world, the Florida Everglades, have been under attack by human land clearing activities for at least 100 years. There, the land has been drained, burnt, and razed to make room for human habitation and farming. In the process, eradicating countless numbers of species of animals and plants and their habitats. I happened to live near this area in my youth, and every year in the 1990s, new communities were built further west into the Everglades lands. Although these lands are supposedly protected by state and federal governments, projects have and continue to get approved for major and polluting roads and polluting communities, shopping malls, and farmland. Not to mention that the original human inhabitants of this area, the Seminoles, are now corralled in a tiny area in the middle of the Everglades, the Big Cypress Indian Reservation. These people have no choice but to expand outward into the pristine wildlife areas as their population grows. Many wildlife areas in the US are in similar or worse peril, too numerous to begin to list here. In other countries, the taking of animal habitat seems to get even more egregious as less restrictions generally exist. Expansion into the forest of Central and South America is also occurring at alarming rates. The feverish growth of Asian and African cities can give you a hint into the widespread destruction of animal habitat. The expansion of farmlands to support growing cities generally takes the most land away from wildlife. Currently, over 90% of all mammals that inhabit Earth are humans and livestock. In The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Kolbert, it is thoroughly argued how humans are currently causing the planet's sixth mass extinction of numerous animal and plant species due to our destructive activities. Kolbert authoritatively argued that by profoundly reshaping natural habitats, we weaken and fragment animal populations. Animals cannot just get up and relocate when we decide to build a housing complex on their land. Many animals will attempt to remain or return to that area to live and breed, often coming in contact with humans and vehicles, thus handing many of these relocated animals a death sentence. Another topic, too large to even scratch the surface here, is the problem of deforestation of the Amazon forest in South America. The ongoing disaster, the deforestation of the Amazon, is one that has been going on for many decades. As a reminder, the Amazon is the largest and most biodiverse rainforest area of the planet, and it also happens to be the world's largest above-ground carbon store. It is also home to some of the few and precious remaining independent indigenous communities in the world. Yet, we have been ignorant, greedy, and savage enough to destroy and continue destroying vast and growing areas of these forests. Per the Rainforest Foundation, a depressing 17% of the Amazon has been lost to human activity and deforestation. In 2019 alone, 2.60 million hectares of forest cover was lost. This is on top of the already lost over 90% of Brazil's Atlantic rainforests. Among the most egregious crimes to animal and plant life in the world occurred in Australia between the summer of 2019 and early winter of 2020. Many mega bushfires burnt uncontrollably, widely put among the results of human-driven climate change. The aftermath of these intense and unprecedented fires left an estimated 24.3 million hectares, that is 94,000 square miles, of land destroyed and catastrophically killed over 3 billion terrestrial vertebrates and countless other smaller animals. Some endangered species are believed to have become extinct due to these mega fires. The breadth and scale of the loss of the habitat and animal life of this disaster is still hard to understand. The capacity for destruction of other animal species that we humans have achieved is stomach-churning and vomit-inducing. We really have been a shame in the eyes of a creator as the shepherds of all life here on earth, and if we were somehow to be judged on our deeds and to make the earth a better place, the word miserable would be a compliment. The protection of animal and plant life simply is a paramount reason to choose to live off the grid. In doing so, you are effectively turning your back on the machinery that has allowed for so much destruction and pillaging of animals and their homelands. Turning your back on the fossil fuel industry, which has allowed the pollution of countless hectares of land and water worldwide. Turning your back on the logging industry that has cleared so much precious wild land. Turning your back on the inefficiency and greed and uncontrolled expansion which has altered and destroyed so many millions of acres of land unnecessarily and without much regard to its original inhabitants, including indigenous peoples and animals. Living off the grid allows you to think more in sync with nature and animal life and become more caring and efficient when using natural resources for energy and food. Living sustainably allows you to not require several thousand-acre farms for your food or a 100-acre power plant for your electric energy, therefore sparing all that land for those other creatures that help make this planet habitable. So, for the sake of biological diversity and a healthier overall planetary environment, we must protect animal life. You see, we depend on other species for countless processes that we don't directly experience. For example, if termites and similar bugs did not break down dead trees, forests as we know them would simply not exist. And if we exterminated all roaches, so would we be exterminating many types of majestic birds that feed on them. You see, our world is interconnected through biodiversity. And the reasons why biodiversity is important are too many to exhaust here. So, we speak for the animals. We, the conscious and compassionate, the humane and aware. We must demand limits to the rampant and reckless human expansion into animal habitats. We must protest the obvious abuses and crimes against animals, their habitats, and ecosystems. We must educate and popularize the right for the animals to exist and bring awareness to the importance of biodiversity to young and old alike. We must convince people of the fact of natural evolution and present the mountains of evidence for it, which will surely sequentially lead to more appreciation of other species. And we must extend as a humanity the right to life to all other species and establish strict boundaries on the rare instances where it may be permissible to end such life. By Hector Vladimir, June 2023. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please look for the next episode soon, and please ensure you share this with your friends and family. And please like this content and subscribe as a sign of support and for me to continue to provide this type of content to more people like you. Thank you.